أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآله الطاهرين.
Thank you so much for joining us on this book launch for Imam Mahdi, his position and mission. Alhamdulillah, we've had a great time working on this book, and I'm so pleased to share this experience with you all. And I'm hoping that through this short book launch, we'll get a chance to find out a little bit more about the processes behind making this book and what this book is all about, inshallah. For those of you who would like to order a copy of the book, you can do on our website, www.sunbehindthecloud.com. And we also have an early bird coupon offer, which I will show you at the end of the program, inshallah. Okay, so after welcoming you all, I would also like to welcome Brother Hasan Pooya and Shaykh Bahmanpour, who have been working tirelessly on the book. Thank you so much for joining today and sharing your experiences. I'd like to start with Brother Hasan, inshallah. Could you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
So I have a old fascination with the Qur'an, and I always try to do my best in asking a lot of the questions that come to mind. And Allah has blessed me with people like Shaykh Bahmanpour, who I continuously bother to ask those questions. And that's where my interest has developed into further research.
Amazing. And so after doing all this different research into various topics, what made you interested in working in this particular subject?
I think Imam Mahdi is a very critical component of our identity today. And we require, we have a Karbala'i identity, we have an Alawi identity, and I think the Mahdawi identity needs a lot more work, active work within ourselves, not only within the identity, but within our responsibilities within the identity. So I think and Shaykh Bahmanpour's lectures were really inspirational in that regard.
So how did the process work in using his lectures?
So Sarfraz Manji was kind enough to share it with me, just just for me to hear. And when I heard them, I did call up Shaykh Bahmanpour, and I said, "Oh, these are really good lectures, and can we do something about that?" And he said, "Okay." And in his usual kindness, he said, "Okay, do it." So we started the process. It was my sister who did the transcription, God bless her, along with her daughters. They started the transcription process, and the rest is a team effort between us, as you know, chopping, changing, adding, seeing whatever could be done, not done. So I think it was all a team effort. The main process was a team effort that made it possible.
Alhamdulillah. And in that kind of process, which aspect of the book do you think you enjoyed working on the most?
I think the entire book. There must be one. The entire book comes. No, I think what I like particularly about the entire book is that it answers questions to people that are there in the back of their mind, but they're not either articulated or they don't want to pose. And I think this book addresses that, and I think that's what makes it something different.
Yeah, I know what you mean when you say that. Yeah, that those questions may be at the back of your mind, maybe until they're answered, you didn't know you had those questions. Is that what you mean? Okay.
Exactly.
So now I'm going to ask you a tough question. Okay. Which chapter do you think a reader would be most inspired by? I know it's really hard because we want to say them all, but if you had to pick one, like somebody had limited time and they could only read one chapter.
I think the concept of the hujjah is a very important concept for us to understand, and understand it at an esoteric level, because we all try to look for some kind of material clues to whatever we do. And I think the how it's been explained and the importance of it, whether we know of it or whether we don't know of it, the importance of a hujjah always being present on earth as a esoteric direction for human guidance, I think is probably the most fundamental concept in the book.
Yeah, I guess that's also what makes the Shia school different, and that kind of theological understanding of the hujjah. Thank you so
Correct.
much. I really feel like
much.
you've put so much time and effort into this, and I really want to appreciate that, and say thank you so much. Jazakallah khair. And I hope lots and lots of you will enjoy reading the book and all these efforts. Thank you so much for your time as well today.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to now welcome Shaykh Bahmanpour. He has alhamdulillah, no need for any introduction. We're all very much aware of all his amazing works. For those of you who don't know, Shaykh Bahmanpour has also written Understanding Surah Yasin, which is a tafsir verse by verse of Surah Yasin, and also Understanding Surah Baqarah, slightly larger, and it has, again, verse by verse tafsir of Surah Baqarah. So it's definitely worth reading those two. And now, alhamdulillah, he is the author of Imam Mahdi, His Position and Mission. I'd like to welcome him. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you so much for coming today and for your time. And congratulations on this beautiful occasion of the birth of Imam Mahdi. Thank you so much. So as I said in the beginning, I really enjoyed working on this book, and I feel like I learned so much. But as soon as I opened the book, the first thing you said is that in the preface that this is not the first book written about Imam al-Mahdi, nor will it be the last. So in your opinion, what do you think sets this book apart?
Well, first of all, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everyone. And also, I really have to thank Brother Hasan and you, Sister Tahsin, for working on this book. I know how difficult it was, and it's always difficult to put speech into written literature, which was a job done by Brother Hasan and his sister, of course, very nicely. And the work you did on editing and adding all those things, many nitty-gritties here and there that needed to put the whole lectures into book form. And I'm sure if it was not for your enthusiasm, Hasan's enthusiasm, it wouldn't have come to take place. So the book really owes to you more than it owes to me. And we have to thank you for that and congratulate you for having done a service to Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, both of you and anyone who has worked on this. Now, certainly, of course, obviously, it's not the first book written on Imam Mahdi, and there have been many books, hundreds of books written on Imam Mahdi before. And I hope the next book written on Imam Mahdi, inshallah, will be when he is established and we want to write something about his governance, inshallah. And this is something which we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to facilitate. But anyhow, since this is a very important concept among Muslims, both Shias and Sunnis, so I'm sure people will come to new ideas, new explanations, new way of putting this into literature in future. So this will not be the last book. What may make this book a bit distinct from other literature written about Imam Mahdi is that it delves deeper into his position, his spiritual position as an imam, as a hujjah, as a khalifa, khalifatullah, as a muhaddath, and as one of the 12 caliphs that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that would come after him. So just digging deeper into this will make us to understand what his position is and how connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he is. We always say, Ya Hujjat ibn al-Hasan, but what's the meaning of Hujjah? That we call him Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. What's the meaning of Hujjah? And what impact it has on our life now that he is absent and when he will be present, inshallah. And of course, then a little bit of more analytical discussion about things that we have heard, like for example, when he will come, he establishes justice. What does that mean? The enormity of the wealth which will be there, and he distributes it among people. And then the type of dialogue he establishes with different faiths. All these things which may have been said in other books, but it has had a new approach in this book.
Yeah, I felt that as well, that the discussion, especially on the spiritual position, is not something that I have read before. And I felt that it really helped to get an understanding of who the Imam is. I mean, in your opinion, what do you think is important for people to understand about Imam Mahdi's spiritual position?
Well, first of all, people should know that he is not above human, a person who has a status above human. He's not, he is, of course, a superhuman, but not anything beyond a human being. And of course, the other thing is that as we are suffering, that he is not present, he is suffering as well. I mean, he would like to come and fill the earth with justice and equity, but the situation would not allow him. And you know, I mean, how a long life, like usually when we get to 100 years old, 110 years old, we really, really feel that we are tired of life. And for him waiting all this time, I mean, waiting for us is difficult, but I think for him is more difficult to accomplish his job. And also, of course, they have to know that superstitions about him should be removed. And I have tried to somehow not talk in a way that we go into superstitions about Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. And we really state what he is from the Qur'an and from hadith.
Yeah, those are really, really important. And you talked about how understanding this spiritual position and, you know, thinking about Imam Mahdi and his own struggle. How does that understanding help to build a relationship with the Imam during his absence?
Well, of course, it depends what we mean by relationship. If we mean a heartfelt relationship, someone who is a guide, who is now absent, and he's absent because of us, not because of his own choice. He's absent because of us. And of course, he may become ill, he may have troubles in his life as well, because he's a human being. And thinking about that would make us to supplicate for his health, to supplicate for his coming sooner than later. And also knowing that we are not like a people who has lost his leader, who doesn't know what to do, who has lost the guide, and the guide is not there to guide us. And this makes us to supplicate to God, to first of all guide us, our hearts, to be able to understand what the Quran tells us, and also to supplicate for him coming and telling us what is the interpretation, the right interpretation of the Quran.
Yes, yes. And in that way, it's more like, would you say that that's more like building a relationship, not like so much a personal relationship, but also understanding our role in the sense that we are, like you said, people without a leader?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think our responsibility at the time of his absence is more than our responsibility for his presence. Because when he comes, of course, he tells us what to do and what to refrain from doing. But now we have to struggle to find out what pleases him. You know, people like Imam Mahdi and other A'immah, their pleasure is not personal pleasure, is not anything to do with self. Their pleasure is pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what we do that he is pleased with those actions, even if he doesn't know about it. I mean, we don't say that he's like God knowing everything, but we may want, just like, for example, you want to do something to please someone that you love, even if he doesn't know. And this is very important, and this builds that relationship.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And even like something else that you talk about in the book that I had not thought about before was this idea of an understanding of the faraj. And that I think there was some hadith that you quoted that showed that even the earlier imams like Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Rida, they were also awaiting the ease or the faraj. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, certainly, because the other A'imma, they were not given that authority, or time was not right for them. Allah had not placed them in a time that they may be able to establish what Allah has promised. وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ مِنْكُمْ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كَمَا اسْتَخْلَفَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. And then he says, يُبَدِّلَنَّهُمْ بَعْدَ خَوْفِهِمْ أَمْنًا. Then security will come and all these things. They were not in a position to establish that. They were not in a position to fulfill the verse, which is, of course, a quotation from Zabur Dawood, that's وَلَقَدْ كَتَبْنَا فِي الزَّبُورِ مِنْ بَعْدِ الذِّكْرِ أَنَّ الْأَرْضَ يَرِثُهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ. We wrote in Zabur, after we wrote it in Zikr, which is Torah, that the earth will be inherited by the Salihin. And incidentally, I was looking at Zabur Dawood a couple of days ago, and several times it has been mentioned that the earth will be inherited by Salihin. I mean, you can go on the internet and look at Psalms of David, and it's written there very clearly. And the Quran says this, but this was not something that other A'imma could do. They knew that this was not their mandate. Their mandate was to build up the faith, to guide people towards the complete faith, so that it leads to the coming of the Imam who has this mandate. So, and this meant faraj, isn't it? They did not have the mandate to do that, and they couldn't do it. But they knew that the Qa'im alayhi salam will come and he will do it. So they were waiting for that faraj as well, for the ease.
Yeah. Yeah, when you put it like that, that makes a lot of sense. And even this idea of the faraj and when the Imam comes and all these beautiful hadith that you mention in the book, when the Imam comes, what the society will be like, how people will live, how there will be so much abundance. And it sounds like some kind of unreal utopia that I cannot imagine existing on this earth, especially how would it change from the way it is to that. So like, how do you think something like that is possible?
You know, the Quran has hinted, in a sense, the Quran has told us that if you are God-wary, if you have faith, then the doors of abundance would open to you, isn't it? وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. If different people, different civilizations, they had faith and they had taqwa, meaning that do not trespass the laws of God, then the doors, the barakat of heaven and earth the doors would be open to them. So abundance and everything that they needed, whether in terms of knowledge or in terms of material needs. Or, for example, about the Christians and Jews, it says, وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ أَقَامُوا التَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ لَأَكَلُوا مِنْ فَوْقِهِمْ وَمِنْ تَحْتِ أَرْجُلِهِمْ. Had they upheld the Qur'an and Injil, then they would have been fed from above and from beneath. That means spiritually and materially. But this did not happen. Or in Surah Jinn, we have وَأَلَّوْ اسْتَقَامُوا عَلَى الطَّرِيقَ لَأَسْقَيْنَاهُمْ مَاءً غَدَقًا. Had they been perseverant on the right path, we would have given much blessing. Now, we may ask, Ya Allah, is this real? I mean, we know that throughout the history, people have not been like that. People have been corrupt, profligate, shedding blood. But really, if people was like that, you would have opened all the doors of abundance to them. You would have given all those blessings. Now, when Imam comes, Allah will say, didn't I tell you that if you were faithful, if you had taqwa, I would open the doors of abundance to you. I know you rightly said it's like a utopian society, but this is what God has promised human beings. And of course, rightly, it comes at the end of the human history, so that God tells them, because human history is a platform for showing, everyone showing the true nature of themselves. It's an arena for test. But when it comes to the end, Allah will tell them, okay, you did not listen, but look, this was what you would have if you had faith and if you had taqwa. You didn't have it. And incidentally, one of the hadiths that I mentioned there is that because of the abundance, gold, silver, everything is there, and Imam calls people, come and take. This is what you shed blood for. This is what you cut your relation with relatives. This is what you did all corruptions for. Now come and take it. So it's a very nice sort of fulfillment of what Allah has mentioned in the Quran.
I know, it's truly amazing. It makes me wonder that, I mean, you touched on this already, but is it something that you have to achieve on a societal level with the Imam coming back, or is it possible? How much can you achieve on an individual basis?
Well, of course, even you mean at the time of the Imam?
I mean, like now, if you wanted to live in that utopia, if you wanted to have that relationship with the Imam as if he was here, how much of that is possible? Or is it something we have to wait for?
That promise of God on the societal level, which I mentioned, is in place for at individual level as well. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. We can actually test that on an individual level. That, okay, now, Ya Allah, I want to really, really God-wary. I want to really put my trust on you. And then we see the blessings come. So it is fulfilled. And then we can say, yes, if this is fulfilled on individual level, then it can be fulfilled on societal level as well.
Inshallah, I mean, inshallah. Okay, so in all of that, in that idea that, you know, we're waiting for the faraj, and you talk in the book a bit about our responsibilities during the absence of the Imam. Could you tell us more about that?
Well, the first thing is preparation for his coming. As I have mentioned in the book, preparation doesn't mean that, for example, we have to learn how to fight or how to, for example, argue with people. No, preparation is that we prepare our hearts to accept him when he comes. Because when he comes, he talks about God in a way that only pure hearts would accept it. And we have the past experience of Jews and Christians that when the promised Savior, the promised one came, they rejected him. It wasn't that because they already wanted to reject him. The Jews had gathered in Medina and surroundings to receive their last prophet, but they rejected him. Why? Because their hearts did not accept him, because their hearts had gone corrupt, their hearts was connected more to this world than to God, and all these things. So the preparation is that we have, first of all, to make our hearts godly. That is very important. And then because he is going to establish the true faith and Quran, we learn more about the Quran. We internalize the values of the Quran rather than the values that usually we are now trying to somehow accommodate the Quran in the modern values, or they accommodate modern values into the Quran so that we say, okay, the Quran is also talking about the same values, but it's not settled. We know that Quran is talking about something very different. And we have to internalize those values into our hearts so that when he comes and speaks, we don't say, no, this is not what we were waiting for. We say, yes, this is what our heart understands as well. This is what we are, and this is the meaning of tasdeeq, isn't it? وَالَّذِي جَاءَ بِالصِّدْقِ وَصَدَّقَ بِهِ, the one who came with the truth and the one who confirmed the truth. And this confirmation cannot be there unless our hearts is with the truth.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you talk about that point really beautifully in understanding Surah Baqarah when you go through those verses about the Jews who settled in Medina and their reactions to the arrival of the Holy Prophet. And that discussion in this book, I would recommend everyone to read, because you're reading it and I felt like I was thinking about, there were so many parallels between their waiting in Medina for the arrival of the Holy Prophet and our waiting here for the arrival of the 12th Imam. And, how they reacted, and, the expectation wasn't what happened wasn't what they expected.
Absolutely. You know that it's not only Shias who are waiting for Imam Mahdi. I mean, the whole Muslim world is waiting for Imam Mahdi. It's an Islamic concept. But we have in Hadith that the first people who fight against him are Muslims. So why is that? Because, of course, the hearts are not ready to accept him. Then he goes to other people, other nations, Jews, Christians, and others. So initially he has to set the house in order so that he can go and talk to others.
Yes, absolutely. That's kind of a worrying thing. And I think you also mentioned the people of Kufa and how they reacted to Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so I pray that inshallah we're among the ones who follow the Imam when he arrives, and in his absence that we have that understanding of truth that he confirms, inshallah. Okay, we're almost at the end of our book launch, but I wanted to ask you another difficult question, which is, what would you say are the 3 main takeaways from this book, in the sense that someone's going to take these messages and they've understood what you're saying?
Well, that's a very difficult question, as you said. But I think one of the most important things is to be ready for him coming, how to be ready. We have to work on our hearts. We have to work on our understanding and ma'rifah of the Quran. So that, because his message is absolutely the message of the Quran. And when we say message of the Quran, it doesn't mean praying, fasting. Every Muslim is doing that. It means justice, it means benevolence. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba. It means altruism. It means taking trust seriously. I mean, all these things are things that we have to work upon. This is one thing. So in a way, put our life in line with the Quran. And that is when, of course, we will meet Imam with a glad heart. And the second thing in the book, I think, was the part that I loved very much was that walk with the Kumail. The way Imam Ali is actually talking his heart to Kumail about the Hujjah, that people do not understand what I know. And there's no one to tell them. But then he says, yes, of course, there will always be some. Standing with Hujjah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, how many are they, where are they? And then he says, أُولَٰئِكَ وَاللَّهُ الْأَقَلُّونَ عَدَدًا وَالْأَعْظَمُونَ عِندَ اللَّهِ قَدْرًا. They are very small in number, but their value in the eyes of God is great. And the other thing, I think, apart from the position of the Imam that you mentioned, is very fascinating to understand. The type of society that he is going to establish is very interesting as well. I mean, the utopian sort of society, which is very difficult for us to understand. We don't have actually means to understand that type of society. And inshallah, Allah will show us that.
Inshallah. Ameen. Ameen. I wanted to thank you as well. I learned, like I said, so much. And, you know, you've taken the time out today. I've asked you lots of questions, things that interested me. I wanted to ask if any of the audience, anyone listening, had any other questions they wanted to ask Shaykh about the book or about Imam al-Mahdi. If you would like to ask a question, you can either put up your hand or you can type it in the chat section. So if anyone would like to ask a question, please, please do come forward. It's a really great chance to ask. Whilst you're thinking of your questions, I wanted to just quickly show you the contents page of the book, because we've been talking about lots of different aspects of the book, so and referring to different chapters. So here is the contents page and what it looks like. The first part of the book discusses the Imam's position and goes into some of his titles that we so often repeat in our ziyarat, like Hujjatullah and Khalifatullah, and a few others that are really, really interesting and will really help to develop an understanding of who the Imam is, regardless of whether he is present or absent. And I think a lot of it goes for all of the Imams, so just the general understanding as well, it really helps with that. The second part of the book looks at the mission of the Imam and the type of, like we were talking about, utopian society that he will establish, inshallah. And the last section is about our responsibilities during his absence. So there's just an idea of what the book looks like from the inside and the set out, inshallah. And also, as I mentioned, we do have a special discount for all of you who have come today and listening to the recording, that you can enter the word book launch at the checkout where asked for a promo code. You can type that in and you will get a special discount of the book. At the moment, the book is on pre-order, so you can pre-order your copy now, and when it arrives, inshallah, we will send it to you. Let me just check if anybody has any questions. No questions. Shaykh, you have been so utterly clear, and everybody seems to understand and be on their path, inshallah. That's an achievement.
You're so utterly lucky.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much once again for your time, and for everybody who has come. And may Allah grant you more and more tawfiq to continue on this path and explain to us more and more things, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah, and Allah gives you more tawfiq to work on your son behind the cloud and publish more books, which are all of them. I mean, I'm not talking about my own books, but the other books that you are publishing are really, really enlightening, helpful for the children, for the grown up, and all the audience, alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.